For the first time in like 20 plus years, the Knicks have a smart plan. And I know that sounds too good to be true. It reminds me of the time that I found a huge, beautiful apartment online for just $200 a month, and landlord said he only wanted me to send a check to Nigeria to confirm the deal. But seriously, I swear this Knicks thing is real. They have one of the best futures in the whole league. Oh wait, I thought the Grizzlies or the Hawks or the Hornets or the Pelicans had a great future. Yeah, they do, but I put the Knicks right up there with those teams. The reason is because of what they did this offseason. Now, at first, it was a huge letdown. They spent all their cap space to run back the first round exit guys, Derrick Rose, Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Julius Randle. Their big free agents, Evan Fournier. And I know that getting Kemba Walker on a team-friendly deal was great, but how does all that add up to a promising future? Well, this video explains what the Knicks' secret plan is and how it could lead to their first chip since 1973. At the end, I'll explain the biggest reason this plan can work. Yo, it's Casey, this is AM Hoops, hit subscribe and all that stuff. Clearly, we did not get to every single offseason team before free agency. And I'm thinking if you guys like this kind of video, then maybe instead of what they should do in the offseason will be a look back at what they did and maybe like grades. And honestly, I think the Knicks did a great job, which is weird because they've been so bad for so long. I could see young fans watching The Last Dance and being like, you mean the 90s Bulls' biggest rival was the worst team in the league? Yeah. They faced each other 6 times in the playoffs between 1989 and 96. Knicks Bulls was one of the most legendary series in the 90s. Then Jim Dolan came around. Now, it is really fashionable to crap on Dolan as a team owner these days, but what did he actually do? Well, all he had to do was hire the wrong leadership and let them ruin the franchise. Now, I'm not gonna run down the entire list of mistakes because that's an entire video to itself, but let's just say that you could not wreck a franchise worse if you tried. They would routinely trade away first-round picks that turned into legends like Dwayne Wade or Chris Paul in favor of overpaid players past their prime. Then, everything good they did do turned to crap, like hiring Phil Jackson, trading for Melo, drafting Kristaps. Normally, when a team sucks this bad, when they turn things around, it brings hope. Like when the Wizards traded for Russell Westbrook, their fans got excited. Well, Knicks fans have been so beat down after 20 years. When they hired Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau, the reaction was like, well, they'll figure out some way to screw this up. Instead, the Knicks were good. They made the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, and the first scene of the NBA post-COVID was a packed, loud MSG. Even then, Knicks fans doubted their team. Their moves this offseason were 3 years, $43 million for Derrick Rose, 3 for $32 Nerlens Noel, 3 for $30 Alec Burks, 4 for $117 for Julius Randle, 4 for $78 to Evan Fournier, and 2 for $18 for Kemba Walker. But if you look closer, you will see the plan. Actually, a really smart plan. Rose, Noel, and Burks all have a team option in that third year to align with Kemba's 2-year deal. And Randle could have waited to sign a max next offseason, but instead he saved the next $50 million by signing early. That means New York can land a superstar in 2 ways. They could have a ton of cap space in 2023 for a superstar when all those guys expire, or they can trade for one before then. The Knicks cap sheet has 7 players making between $8 and $20 million, plus a ton of draft picks. That is a perfect formula for trading for a star. When I'm trying to come up with trade ideas for AM Hoops videos, I look at some teams and they just have no wiggle room. The Lakers are a great example. They're so top heavy, they can't trade for a Bradley Beal type salary. All they have is Russ, LeBron, and Anthony Davis. Everyone else makes too little to match salary. The Warriors are another example. They have to trade like Andrew Wiggins or Draymond Green because the roster is so top heavy. Now I'll get to who the Knicks can actually acquire later in the video, but this is huge. This means the Knicks have finally acted like a responsible franchise. They had $50 million in cap space, but didn't screw their own future. They saw there weren't any franchise-changing free agents, so they were like, all right, we'll try again another year. They never do that. They usually act like the Bulls, who traded a first, 2 seconds, and a good player for DeMar DeRozan and overpaid him. Now, Chicago can't trade any more first-round picks, and they're going to regret this and the effect on their cap later. Such a Knicks move. New York also didn't sign a 35-year-old Kyle Lowry to a huge deal. They, instead, will be patient and just make little playoff runs in the meantime. And that's the kind of thing that attracts superstar players. Now, in 2023, they could land free agents like Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Nikola Jokic if they don't sign extensions, or they could easily trade for a big name like Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard if they want out. Again, I cannot explain to non-Knicks fans how huge this is that they didn't act like the normal Knicks. It finally looks like Jim Dolan hired the right people and he's letting them do their jobs. But the biggest reason that this whole plan can actually work is the New York market. The Knicks have been one of the most profitable teams during all the losing because they're in New York. That market is one of 3 free agent destinations. 1, LA, 2, New York, 3, Miami. Those 3 teams have a free agent advantage no other teams have. The reason no team has more titles than the Lakers is they attract superstars. Wilt in the 1970s, in the 80s it was Kareem, Shaq in the 90s, and now LeBron. Teams like OKC or even the Warriors have to dominate the draft to be relevant, but those other teams can cheat the system. That is why the Knicks have one of the most promising futures in the NBA. They have that ultra rare advantage. However, just being in New York is not enough. I mean, you have to be decent from a basketball standpoint. Like the Clippers for years couldn't really attract those guys, but they became respectable and then attracted Kawhi and Paul George. The Nets got to the playoffs the year before KD and Kyrie chose them. Now, the Knicks' plan is to be respectable on the court to attract a superstar that leaves his team. Then they will be an attractive option. Now, I fully expect if Jim Dolan doesn't get involved and ruin this thing, which he could, that the Knicks will be back in the NBA Finals within the next 3 years. We don't know which superstars are going to lead them there, but the Knicks are ready for whoever becomes available. Now, big props to Julius Randle for getting his money. I'm glad he did. He saw how guys like Dennis Schroeder got screwed over when he was offered that big contract. So I think Julius Randle was like, no, I'll take that huge max 4-year deal. But part of the reason why Julius Randle had such a great season last year, first-time All-Star, was because of a secret that Kobe Bryant taught him when they were teammates.